Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of The Production House, a CUTV podcast with your host, Kareen Joseph. And I have my first ever guest, Amber Jackson.
Hi.
So, Amber, you, along with a few others, represent the staff.
That's correct.
So, as a staff member, you have a slew of different obligations.
That's also correct.
So, can you tell us? Can you tell the audience what are some of your obligations here?
Well, CUTV is a job like no other job I've ever had. My official title is Administrative Coordinator. I think we changed that on the website because I was like, guys, that doesn't make any sense. But I don't remember what it is now. But when I was hired, it was Administrative Coordinator. And I never realized how multifaceted my job tasks would be. I was glad that it was in the arts because my background is music, actually. But when I got here, it became evident that it wasn't just administrative tasks, and for that I was overjoyed. So I basically, along with the board of directors, create and maintain the budget for the station. I sort of manage the money and to a certain extent the people. We have an executive director who is the be all end all people manager at CUTV, but I'm sort of the liaison, if that makes any sense. The board of directors and Brian, our executive director, come up with the strategy for the station, and I make sure that everyone can execute that it's possible to execute that, and that we do it in a way that doesn't make us want to kill each other.
So you're essentially the backbone of, among all the other staff members, when it comes to more of the nitty-gritty work.
I'd say I'm the skeleton. Not necessarily the backbone, but the skeleton. And, Lara's the vascular system. She's the equipment depot. And Sasha's the heart, and God help me, I'm going to say that Brian's the brain, even if he's got a special brain. I love you, Brian.
So for you specifically, what interested you in CUTV?
Well, I was a Concordia University student from 2010 to 2012. And in 2012, there was a big political uprising in which the students went on strike. I'm a bit of background information. I'm from Texas, so I'm American. I'd never seen students strike over tuition before. I didn't even know that was a possibility. And CUTV was actually covering that. They were one of the first media organizations to live stream the protests and get involved in that way. At that point in time, the SPCA, the public, basically the political science, the School of Political Science, was sending us a lot of their students to cover those sorts of things. So that was my first experience with CUTV, and it was very cursory. I didn't get involved with CUTV. I just sort of noticed the crews in the protests of 2012. Flash forward to 2015, I had a number of administrative jobs in not-for-profits and nothing really that relevant to my field. I had been teaching music, which is what I wanted to do, but because there aren't very many orchestra programs in Montreal, in the public schools, and because I didn't have my teaching license from Texas doesn't come... I can't transfer it here, so it was it was complicated and political and whatever. So I was teaching in the smaller after-school programs, which meant that I had no nights and no weekends, and I was getting paid very little. And if my students, there was no predictability. If a student didn't show up, I didn't get paid. That's So I rapidly began to realize I needed, something more stable. So I did not-for-profit administration for, I guess, 3-4 years, to sort of make ends meet. And then I wound up as a secretary at a company, and it was terrible. Everything about it was wrong. I left without giving notice. I sent them an email on a Friday. I've never done that before in my life, but they were just like, they abused their employees. So I went to work for Starbucks, and I was like, okay, the next job that I get is going to be in my field, come hell or high water. If I have to like stick it out living with two roommates in this terrible apartment, paying like nothing rent, and work at Starbucks for 10 years until I get myself together, that's what I'm gonna do. So I did that, and lo and behold, eventually the job at CUTV came up, and I applied, and I got it, and I'm glad that I did, because this place has been a beautiful opportunity for me.
So, how many years have you been with CUTV?
I was hired in March of 2015, and it is currently, May of 2018?
Correct.
I had to ask.
So, during that time, I would assume that you've been involved in a number of projects with the other members.
Oh, yes. Some of them more silly than others.
So can you tell us a bit about your most recent project or projects?
Well, I also decided that I wanted to start a feminist video blog on the side. So there's actually one of our members, Ariel Rayner Lefkowitz, who got a grant from CUTV because we did production grants. One board of directors voted to allocate money for that, and then we made a panel, and so she got a grant for her cooking show, Cooking in the Cut, and it's a comedy show, and cooking is not really, it's interesting because cooking is something that women are supposed to do in the kitchen culturally, but within the realm of being a professional chef, you don't really see that. It's kind of a male dominated thing, the whole chef in a kitchen situation, and so I wanted to do, since my video blog is about feminism, I wanted to do an episode on the ironies of a woman who is dealing with misogyny in a job that should be a female dominant industry if you take into account patriarchal stereotypes, but it isn't for whatever reason. So I wanted to, hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So I did a video blog episode with Ariel, and to make it like fun and catchy, we set my kitchen on fire so that I could like feign that I set a kitchen fire and I needed her help. So that was really fun because it offered up a bunch of production challenges, like how do you set a fire in a small Montreal apartment kitchen without setting the apartment on fire? How do you film that? Because most flame has a bit of a translucence to it, right?
Right.
So it proposes a whole question of, lighting and aperture and focus, and it proposed many challenges. My kitchen also proposes many challenges because the lighting's terrible and there's no window.
Right.
So it was fun. We worked with John Moon as our DOP. He's a longtime member here. He predates me by a long shot. He was on the board of directors when I was hired, and he was amazing as a secretary of the board. Just incredible. Yeah.
In terms of video production, what would you say is your favorite part, and what part brings you the most frustration?
Well, the most frustration, editing. I mean, I love the finished product, but getting there, because I see the movie in my head, and sometimes the shots don't come out the way that I thought they were going to come out. Whether I'm in front of the camera or behind the camera, it's still, there's always this thing where I'm like, oh shit, I did everything but the bridge, the transition. It's perfect, but then I'm like, good God, this pacing is slow.
Yes.
Editing is so frustrating. The thing I love the most, you would think that it would be composing the music, but that no longer poses a challenge for me after eight years of university education in music. So the thing that I actually get the most joy out of is acting.
Ah.
Yeah.
Why acting?
I think that there's a type of catharsis in being able to walk around in somebody else's skin. I think it's valuable for everybody to do a little bit of acting in their day, because it forces you to see something from someone else's point of view, which I think is necessary for cultures everywhere if you want to survive, you know? Like, if humanity wants to survive as a species, we have to learn to have empathy for what we consider to be the other. And I think that acting offers this beautiful venue to do that, because you have to play characters that sometimes you don't like.
Can you give the audience an example?
Well, I was doing without disclosing too much, I was doing an audition with one of the professional actors here at CUTV, and I had to play sort of like an angry, like, mob boss wife type character. And I mean, I didn't dislike her, but she really wasn't me. I'm not a violent or intimidating person in my actual life. So I had to find ways to motivate that character that were honest, and I had to put myself in the shoes of someone that may have been in a situation that, you know, they felt like they couldn't have gotten themselves out of. I had to experience what it was like to be angry with someone else for your own bad decisions, and I think that I've experienced that to some extent in my own life, but it never fully shifts your perspective to act, because you still have to be honest, but it's that, like, it takes it to the limit of what you're capable of doing in terms of empathy for other characters, and I think it's, you know, it's interesting. There was also we lovingly call it the orgy film. There's a film that we shot where the premise is basically, it's a silent film. It's not silent, there's music, but there's no dialogue. And the idea is that this young heterosexual couple comes home from a third date, and the guy invites the girl in, and, you know, the guy goes to grab a saxophone to impress her, and he plays his saxophone for her, and then he goes to put the saxophone away, but while he's, like, putting his saxophone away, she, like, disappears, and then he finds her having a threesome with all of his roommates, his male roommates. So I played the female in that, and I am a lesbian, and I am monogamous, and I am modest, and I had to play this very confident heterosexual woman who was, you know, making eyes at these, like, 5 different boys. And, like, I mean, it's like, you can't method act that.
Right.
There's no way to method act that in my case. So there's a lot of Meisner technique going on.
For those of you that don't know, all of the actors in that film were CUTV members or staff. And as a fellow member, seeing people that I know personally, like every person in the cast being someone that you know, and just having like just all your friends do this one project. And I don't mean like, oh, this is a high school video. This is like everyone, we're all adults here, like we all know what we're doing, and just to see everyone you know, work together on this project, well, in more of the acting part, I thought it was hilarious. Like, and there was one point where Tamir, the director of the film, like he showed us the orgy scene as we called it at the time, and there were parts where some of the audio where people were saying, okay, action, and okay, you guys are gonna stand here, here, and here. It was just hilarious.
Yeah,
I was cracking up.
It looks like an orgy, but if you have the audio of what was actually happening at the time, it's like, you know, Tamir and Charlie are like doing the blocking, and I'm, you know, I had a migraine that day, so I'm like, I'll start acting when you yell action. I look like I'm like dying. Right up until Charlie yells action, and then like my eyes are bright and shiny, my smile is big, like, you know, like I look like death has taken me over right up until action.
So it was just being like, I know all these people, but I'm not part of the production, but just seeing everything happen was like, this is the most hilarious thing I have ever seen in my life, and I love it.
Yeah. I particularly love the part where where we switch positions, where like we flip around and I'm supposed to have my legs like wrapped around the mirror, and you can hear in the background of the audio Charlie being like, okay, I'm on the masturbator now, switch! switch quickly, I'm panning back to you! I was like, whoa, what is my life?
Oh my goodness. Now, speaking of movies, do you happen to have like a favorite movie or a TV show or a song that you take inspiration from, whether or not it's to get an idea or that's helped you in an aspect of your life? Is there anything?
I think that I probably relate more with television than with movies in terms of inspiration when I'm acting. I think that most movies are kind of fluff. There are a few movies that are really like well done, but a television show gives you the opportunity to have these sort of interlocking story arcs. I take a lot of inspiration from, I mean, it depends on the style and the genre, right? Like, I love what Joss Whedon did with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Not so much with Angel. He kind of lost it there, but sorry, guys. I know David Boreanaz is hot with his shirt off, but, you know. But yeah, I love the allegory between our fears and the proverbial demons that we face as teenagers being juxtaposed with real demons. Like, he creates real demons that, in a way, represent what we have to go through as we're growing up in that stage from, 14 years old, 15 years old to university level.
Right.
The financial demons, the feelings of invisibility, the home ownership. I hope I'm not spoiling something that's been on the air for 20 years, but, the loss of a parent.
Right.
Those things are all things that I think a big number of the population can relate to. And I think that the important thing about television and media is to see yourself in another character and have that character's journey sort of either give you hope that you're going to make it out of whatever adversity you're facing, or even a roadmap. And I think a lot of shows today do that. I actually, I'm not the average Joe human being in terms of the way I think and the way I feel. And I recently started watching Bones, and I realized, oh my God, Temperance Brennan is the perfect example of someone, of an orphan, right? I mean, I guess that must be like my big issue right now, because I also watched Once Upon a Time, which is also about orphans, but it kind of like, again, it's these characters who have had similar experiences to me. I mean, obviously, I wasn't put in an enchanted wardrobe and shipped off to Maine, but I still understand that question of why would my parents, what's wrong with me? Why
Right.
would my parents sort of abandon me?
Right.
And I think that's important for people to see that in our media, to see these things. There's, Xena, I think it was the first time LGBTQ people actually saw an accurate representation of what it's like to live your life as two women together. No, they weren't overtly romantic. You could see sort of what you wanted to see in those characters. But they were two women that were living their life together, and that with obviously a deep love for one another, whether it was romantic or not, you saw what you wanted to see. But it was pushing the boundaries of what television was at the time. So was Buffy. So was actually 90210. There have been a lot of television shows over the years that have done that, but I think the really important thing about TV and film is that we're trying to resonate with someone. We're trying to have characters that resonate with people, so that they can maybe have a little bit of hope. I mean, look at what's going on in the real world right now.
Right.
It's Donald Trump is in office, the very premise of democracy is being threatened by a group of, sociopathic congressmen. Like, I mean, it's sorry to take it there, but
Right.
I mean, I think that now is a very important time for the average North American to try to relate to the other.
Right.
And I think that television helps people to do that. It's like therapy without the therapist telling you, like people
Yeah.
don't respond very well to someone telling them what they are and what their thought patterns are and, categorizing them in that very cold scientific way, even though I think that psychology is a pseudoscience. But television, because it's anecdotal, it's more subtle, It's a lot more subtle in the way it approaches therapizing. It's like hegemonic therapy. You know what I mean? Like, it's therapy for the masses. It's not like,
It's not curated.
It's not curated to one person, but
Right.
if one person watches enough television, eventually, like, something will, like,
resonate with them.
yeah.
Right. I totally.
It's interesting because I have a lot of friends who are, like, in mental health as a profession, and a lot of them talk about TV as a way of disconnecting or disassociating and not feeling your real feelings. But I disagree. I strongly disagree. I think that it's a catalyst for you to actually feel what you're feeling, especially for those of us who aren't willing to be vulnerable on our own organically.
So, taking the conversation back to CUTV. I know, guys, we're jumping all over the place here.
I have a lot to say about a lot of things.
How
I was born to be an actor, Corinne. What do you want? I like the spotlight more.
Well, speaking of which, how has CUTV helped you in your own career? So, aside from giving you a job.
Aside from giving me a job, I learned a lot of technical skills that I didn't previously have. And I was able to, I feel very fulfilled that I get to teach a lot of the technical skills that I did already have, like music, musical composition. I've done some Foley for members, audio engineering kind of stuff, processing audio, making sure that the gain is not too high, telling people which microphones to use in which situations, that sort of thing. But I gained a lot of the visual aspect technical skills. My ability to comprehend the ratio between the aperture, the f-stop, and the focus. I had none of that until I met John Moon here. My 3-point lighting was a joke at best before coming to CUTV. I was always a pretty good actor. I acted throughout junior high and high school, but this has actually given me an opportunity to do so, to actually practice the craft, because, up until then I was like, yeah, I'm just going to be a musician and I'm going to use it as being a musician. And then that sort of didn't work out. So it's nice that I actually get to act and use that skill. This place has taught me a lot. And I learned Premiere. I was a Final Cut person when I came here. So
Final Cut, me too, right there.
yeah, I learned how to use Premiere. That was a high five for
Yeah.
those of you
Who
aren't
are listening.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much more you can do with the Adobe Suite, because you can integrate After Effects.
Right.
And Audition, right? When I realized that it had built-in audio processing software, not very good built-in audio processing software, but good enough.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, whoa, hello, Bridge. Yes. This is how we should be editing. It's a holistic approach.
A holistic approach. I have never heard anyone say this is a holistic approach in terms of video production ever, and I love it. So
Yeah.
all good here. So can you tell us a bit more about your music background?
I am a classically trained violist. I started playing the viola when I was 11 in the public schools in Texas, where it is still a requirement that you take at least one art. You have to have X number of arts to move on to high school, and then X number of arts to graduate from high school. So I obviously, my art was orchestra, and I don't know, it gave me a community where I didn't have one orchestra. You know, I didn't have, when I started playing the viola, I didn't have friends. Like I literally didn't have friends. My cousin sort of spoke to me sometimes because, you know, we were around. She was 3 months older than me, and we went to the same schools growing up. And, you know, I think for all intents and purposes, she was like the popular kid with friends, and I was like not so popular. I was the weird person who, like, I was the weird kid whose parents went to that weird church on the other side of town, and like I dressed funny, and I didn't eat the same kinds of foods as everybody else. I didn't have the like peanut butter on white bread for lunch, you know, so it was like, you know, I strayed from the standard issue Americana family. So I didn't have any friends until I started orchestra, and that gave me a community, and I've never, ever since then, I've never strayed from the arts because I feel like them's my people. That's my tribe.
Right.
But yeah, I was a classically trained violist.
Interesting. Like, I know, for me, growing up, one of the things that, one of the things, like, I can relate in, like, oh, like, I don't really have any friends. Like, I had plenty of classmates. I had people that I would talk to regularly, because we were either in the same class or we were working on projects together. But I didn't really have many people that I could talk to about like a wide range of topics. And for me it was like that until I believe like the 8th grade, where the high school advisors came into my history class, and they were telling us, okay guys, you're in 8th grade now, and you're going to be going into high school next year, so we're just going to give you like, and so like this would happen like at different points where, okay, we're prepping you guys for high school, these are things to expect. And on this particular day, they came in and told us the different clubs that were available. And so for me, at the time when they were talking about the clubs, they mentioned the anime club, and my eyes just lit up. For those of you that are unaware, anime is Japanese animation. So if you think of characters with large eyes and spiky hair, while that's an oversimplification, an overgeneralization, those are two stereotypes that are associated with anime. And so when I joined the anime club, I was surrounded by many different types of students. Well, we were small, but it was like, oh, okay, some of these students are older, some of them are younger than me, but we all shared this love for anime, and so we would watch an episode of an anime and then discuss it, and it felt like, okay, we're actually having an in-depth discussion. And a few years later, I attended Anime Boston, which is an anime convention, and you get to meet all these types of people. You have panels where voice actors from these different shows would come on and talk about the show, what their experiences were like, and for the first time, for me, it was like, I am with my people. I am with people that actually appreciate the same things I appreciate, and it's like, yes, there is hope.
That's the thing about the arts. It's collaborative, even if it's not.
Right.
You know? Like every idea is built upon another idea, and all of that has anthropological roots somewhere. Every brushstroke has some kind of historical precedent. There's nothing that's never not already been done. And at the same time, it's all still completely unique. It's like, you know, even with music, right? The timbre of my voice, the timbre of my viola. Even if somebody else plays my viola because the velocity of the bow is going to be different based on the weight of their arm. Even when I play at different times in my life because my body shape has changed or whatever, every single time it's like a fingerprint. It's completely unique, even if it's exactly the same thing. So that's one of the things that, like, even when it's solitary, it's collaborative. There's all that backing of history. Every person that's ever played my viola before, or played that piece before, every person that's ever painted that painting, or every voice actor who's ever voiced that one anime character, it becomes something that's a community effort. It's building culture, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like what I tell myself sometimes. I sometimes say, like, when you watch a show, or like even general, like in politics, people expect the leader to make like all these different promises, or and for a lot of the time they're promises that can't be kept because of certain like situations that come up. So I tend to tell myself, I promise that I will never say anything original, but I might say something that someone else has said, or I might say something that someone else has said with my own little twist. So when you, Amber Jackson, are playing an instrument, or you are embodying a character, you are not going to do it the same way that someone else may have done it. You're going to add your own spin to it.
And no one take is the same for me, partially on purpose because I want to give the editors different things to work with. But even if I were trying to do it exactly the same way each time, it wouldn't work because I can even think the same thoughts in my head, but it's, there's actually a physicist who theorized that everything is happening at the same time, and time is a perception. So time is a construct in our minds. So, like, I'm really big into science. I love string theory, but it's just interesting to me that because we perceive things based on the speed of light and sound, it's kind of true. Everything's happening. The past is the future is the present. We're like a flash in a pan.
Right.
So I feel like every single time I deliver a line, because there's a million different variables that I can't control, it's never going to be identical.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what makes us all unique. That's what makes everything that we do interesting. You hear things like, oh, so and so is the next, I don't know, insert famous painter or musician, or the way a person talks like they're the next like famous politician or something.
Right.
It's like, okay, this particular individual, like not the person alive now, but like the famous person that was alive back in their day.
Right.
It's like, yes, they are known for this one or two things, which is cool, but we as people, we don't need another one. We don't need more of the same.
Right.
Which kind of makes CUTV, like, I think is so interesting. Is like everyone has their, like, you have certain, so a lot of the members here, like, they know how to edit, but everyone has their own workflow. Like, some people are very very precise. They need to have everything. Everything needs to be organized. Like, nothing can be out of place. And you have some people, when they edit, it's very loose. Everything is everywhere. But both parties are still able to get their work done.
Anybody that can successfully edit, irregardless of the workflow, has heightened spatial reasoning. And there's no way that they can't have that, because, even when you're organized with editing, you have to remember where it's like dance. You have to remember the choreography of what you did and which clip pertains to that specific choreography. It's like it's it's like a three-dimensional puzzle.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
It actually has more than 3 dimensions because you add time in there.
Right. Time, and also trying to figure out, and also realizing, oh, you're running out of time, and you're running out of resources, and
not just the timing of the cuts. It's, oh my God, this is due in an hour.
Yes, and like so and so should have showed up 2 hours ago, and we're behind schedule. Woo! What is one thing you hope to gain or feel like you have gained from joining CUTV?
Well, I definitely gained a community, that's for sure. I mean, I already sort of had a tribe before coming to CUTV, but I feel like I gained a community. I also feel like there's this nice organic exchange of information here. I was hired because I have the capacity to teach, and to teach things that, other people maybe don't have expertise in, music. Although I did hire a depot technician who has the same background as me. A little bit more heavy on the audio engineering side and a little bit less heavy on the classical music composition side. But that balances us very well, because when I'm frustrated with audio engineering, questions, Laura can always answer them. And, when she's like, I don't understand counterpoint, I can be like, well, in the third species. I'm kind of a music theory textbook, which is ironic since I failed theory and had to retake it 3 times.
Well, you know what they say, third time's the charm.
Yes, true. Wow, I'm going to have to send this podcast to my first viola professor, Susan Dubois. We would have our music theory classes at 8 o'clock in the morning at the University of North Texas, and Dr. Dubois would always be coming into her office as I was running through the halls late, drinking a Dr. Pepper and eating a Snickers bar for breakfast.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear is right. I was like a 15-year-old when I was 18. It was crazy. The look on her face, like, just total disdain.
Because of the food?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
The food and the late and the, like, Amber.
Oh, my God.
That woman was like a surrogate mom. She was great. Every single one of her students were like, they were like Mommy Dubois. It was like,
Well, Amber, thank you so much for this interview.
Well, thanks for interviewing me, and thanks for promoting CUTV. I really believe in this place. I think that it's a great place to have community. If you want to create something and you don't have the manpower to do it, come hang out in our editing room.
Right. And for those of you listening, if you'd like to connect with CUTV, you can follow us on our YouTube page, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, Amber, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to give them the website. So if you want to find CUTV, the best way to do so is to go to www.cutvmontreal.com and click on any of the links. Our website is clunky and ugly, but it's functional, and we have all of our videos on our website broken down into channels. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.